So what does the perfect retirement look like? Well, there are about as many different answers to that question as there are people. However, what we all probably have in common when it comes to retirement is a desire to be living our best, to be enjoying life with good health, positive attitude, and as little stress as possible. But exactly how do you make that happen? It's that time again, time to tune out the hype and focus on the facts. Facts that matter to you, the income generation. Let's get started. Get ready to separate reality from myth.
With us, David Scranton.
David Scranton.
David Scranton.
David Scranton.
But David Scranton says, hey, not so fast.
How does it affect the markets? How does it affect the economy? Thanks to efficiencies and new technology and a staff of veteran analysts and portfolio managers, Sound Income Strategy strives to set new standards and bring institutional style investing to your portfolio. In our series on health earlier this year, we discussed many issues that can impact your health during retirement. We took a close-up look at the organizational and administrative chores involved in preparing for a healthy retirement, and we explored some of the most common hidden risks for enjoying a healthy retirement. This week, we're devoted the hour to living your best in retirement, and that is in every sense of the word. We'll share tips and ideas for steps you can take now to improve your odds of living retirement on your own terms and with holistic good health. Now, as we discussed in our health series, that means good physical, mental, emotional, yes, and financial health. We're also going to get expert insight and perspective from our guests. Joining me will be Joe Mckenzie. He's an entrepreneur, public speaker, and the co-host of the radio program New Beginnings in Minnesota. We'll also have authors Ed and Cynthia Staten back with us. They were last seen on our show in February when we discussed the concept of retiring abroad.
We always say if you live in an interesting city abroad and you're bored, you're boring, not the location.
But first, let's examine what experts say is good advice for living your best at any stage of life, including retirement. Now, naturally, living your best and feeling your best go hand in hand. As we stressed throughout our health series, feeling your best in retirement involves doing all that you can to achieve holistic good health, which again means physical, mental, emotional, and financial health. Whether you're already retired or you're within 10 years of retiring, here are some suggestions from holistic health experts on things that you can do to improve your odds of feeling and living your best. First, set goals. If you're a regular viewer of the show, you've heard that one before. I frequently identify goal setting as one of the most important components of a successful retirement. And, generally speaking, when you set specific goals, you're more likely to act with a sense of purpose and drive. You can start by identifying your overall goals for retirement, but it's also vital to revisit and update them on a regular basis. Setting and updating goals on a monthly, weekly, or even daily basis will help you feel like you're in control of your life and help you measure your success. Next, visualize. This is also something we've discussed in conjunction with goal setting. The two really go hand in hand. Visualization is almost like a test run of your dream life, an image of what things will be like once you've achieved your goals. It helps to further establish what you want and allows you to settle into a positive mindset so that you can take action. Visualization helps you set sensory-specific goals. You envision what a particular day or moment will feel like once your goal is achieved. Visualizing not just the sights, but also hearing the sounds, smelling the smells, and feeling the feelings. And by doing this, you end up working towards your goals on both a conscious as well as a subconscious level. Visualization can also be a form of meditation, which is also highly recommended by experts for holistic good health. Next, keep a journal. Not only does it give you an opportunity to release your feelings, but also gives you the chance to organize your thoughts, which is especially important in today's chaotic and complex world. Now, according to a study by the University of Rochester Medical Center, journaling can help ease symptoms of depression. It can help manage stress and anxiety and help you cope with life in a very productive manner. Next, travel. This is something most retirees do or plan to do anyway, and health experts say that it's a very good thing. Traveling and seeing the world can help you maintain a healthy perspective, and it can foster feelings of excitement and fulfillment. Here's the good news. Traveling doesn't necessarily require spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a month-long trip to Europe. It can be as simple as taking a road trip to a nearby city for a weekend or heading to the wilderness for a couple of days for camping. But next, take care of yourself physically. Eat right, exercise, and do your best to drop unhealthy habits such as smoking. Now that may seem pretty obvious, but many people need a reminder every now and then of just how important it is to proactively maintain good physical health. It's never too late to take care of yourself. If exercise and healthy eating are new to you, then start small and progressively integrate these things into your life. Next, keep exercising your brain and educating yourself. Read new books, learn an instrument, or maybe find a hobby to get into. Study after study actually proves that when you feel intellectually stimulated, you're more likely to feel well and to stay productive in other areas of your life. We'll talk a bit more about this one later as it relates to financial health. And finally, let go of your limiting ego. We all have that little voice in our heads that criticizes and questions virtually everything that we do and undermines our own confidence and our own potential. If there was ever a time to work towards silencing that voice, retirement is the time. Once you're aware of negative patterns in your thought process, you're better able to transform them into more positive energy and more positive actions. But what are some other negative forces that may be working against you as you strive to live your best in retirement? Those coming up in just a minute. And now it's time to welcome our first guest, Joe Mckenzie. He's an entrepreneur with his company, Ripple Connects. Joe is a career expert, public speaker, and the co-host of the weekly radio program, New Beginnings. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David.
So, you talk a lot about contacts, establishing connections and people and networking and so on and so forth. Tell us, how can that benefit our income generation members that are approaching retirement, who want to make sure that they don't feel isolated once they leave the workforce?
Absolutely. And this is something that for 30 years, I've built this model in my sales training, my sales career, and how I built my company and how I basically turn around and help the New Beginnings listeners in the Twin Cities. Yes, the connections are key. David, the first actionable step someone can take is start developing and thinking about who your bench of advocates are. The bench of advocates are people that know you already, David, the people that you've worked with, the people that you maybe in your faith organization you volunteered with. Those are your bench of advocates that are going to help you stay connected as well as achieve a lot of the goals in your retirement, as well as being on someone else's bench of advocates. I think the reciprocal nature of that is very actionable for your viewers today.
It's interesting because today's a different environment. People in the neighborhood always used to know each other, and now a lot of people don't know more than maybe one or two of their neighbors. And I think it's because it's so easy to have those friendships and relationships with the people with whom you work 8 or 10 hours a day. But all of a sudden, correct me if I'm wrong, but you retire, and now all of a sudden it seems like you have to work a lot harder at those relationships. Do you not?
Yes, you do. And that's why people in their early 50s, as they start eyeing up retirement, start building those connections now. So you have that infrastructure in place. So when you do retire, you're not going at it with, who am I going to connect with? You already have an idea who your advocates are going to be and who you can be an advocate for. So the earlier you can start outside your own industry and your own company to build those relationships up, David, is key here.
Yeah, it seems to me as though just about the time that one becomes an empty nester, which for many is probably right around the age of 50, that's a major life-changing event. And that's when a lot of couples separate because they kind of lost touch with who the other person is. So that might be not only a good chance to reconnect with your spouse, but it might also be a great chance to focus on those external relationships, since at that point the kids are off to college or their work career, and they've got more important things to do than mom and dad.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell me, you talk a lot about things such as, employment for seniors, challenges people have with housing, with fitness, with finance. Let's talk about some of those. Let's talk about housing first of all.
Absolutely. Housing is a critical piece for people to stay in their home longer, making sure that they're safe in their homes. Do they have that community that's going to allow them to stay vibrant? That is something we cover on New Beginnings, that we learn of the different housing options. Do you want to be on a ladder, or in Minnesota here, shoveling your snow off your driveway? It's a critical thing. Falls happen, and housing is critical for people to stay in their home longer if they know of the different options that are out there.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about relationships too. The housing's a big part of that, right? I mean, if you live in an isolated area, it might be time to go to an adult community, if you will, where there's people your age, where there's social events, et cetera, et cetera. I know some of those. I mean, I'm not that it's a healthy thing, but in the 20 seconds we have left or so, you've probably heard these stories also that, gee, I can go to happy hour 7 nights a week if they want. There's always something going on at this particular retirement community.
Absolutely. That connection to others and not being isolated is critical as the baby boomers age.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with the housing decision, which makes sense. So
Absolutely.
So Joe, we need to take a break. Please stick around. And you stick around too. We'll be right back with more here on the income generation. I'm David Scranton. We'll be back in a moment. Financial experts have predicted that the next major recession could happen as early as this year. What would you do if it took half of your retirement savings with it, like it did for many Americans during the financial crises that started in 2000 and again in 2007? Would you be willing to downsize your lifestyle and make do with less? Would you be able to go back to work? Whom would you call first? The sad reality is that trusting your typical stock market-based financial advisor to handle your retirement is more like gambling. And who wants to gamble with their retirement? I'm David Scranton, founder of Sound Income Strategies, and there is a safer way investing for income. By focusing primarily on non-stock market income-generating investments, you could significantly reduce the impacts of the next major recession, better protect your savings against stock market risk, and establish renewable streams of income you can count on during retirement. Visit the Retirement Income Store at soundincomestrategies.com to connect with an income specialist who can help you get started on the path to an income-based retirement plan.
Oh, Eeyore! It's only you.
Sorry to disappoint you. Guess I'm too dull to be around. Can't blame you for moving away.
As much as we all love Eeyore, there's no denying that he's not exactly living his best life. In fact, the depressed donkey from Winnie the Pooh is often used by psychologists. Why? To illustrate certain types of negative and self-defeating behaviors. We've done other shows about how some of the biggest challenges in retirement are psychological. These are things like a lack of purpose or a lack of focus once your work life ends, or difficulty in rekindling a strong relationship with your partner once you're spending more time together, dealing with grief as friends and loved ones grow older and pass away. Those can be challenging issues. However, there are also internal drivers of depression and negativity that can hold each of us back. Recognizing those drivers and taking proactive steps to eliminate them can greatly improve your odds of living your best in retirement. Let's look at a few of the most common. One of these drivers is losing your passion for life. This can happen suddenly or it could be more gradual. Again, it's fairly common in retirement because many people don't realize how closely their passion or sense of purpose is tied to their work. Once they leave their job, they feel adrift. They start going through the motions, so to speak. Passion is not a switch that you can simply flip on and flip off. It comes from having that sense of meaning and a desire to work towards something. All those things that your job may have previously given you. This is exactly why goal setting, visualization, and some of the other techniques we discussed in the last segment can be so beneficial. They can help prevent you from losing your passion. Another potential driver of negativity is lacking gratitude. While it's important to always be improving and working toward achieving something new, it's just as important to be appreciative of what you already have. To paraphrase a famous song lyric, happiness isn't just about getting what you want, it's about wanting what you got. Another source of negativity to watch out for is too much free time. Now, that may sound illogical, since one of the things many people look forward to in retirement is more free time. However, having too much unstructured time on your hands most likely won't make you happier. Filling your time with work and activities that fuel your passion and that move you towards your goals is a much better recipe for avoiding negativity and for living your best. Another common internal driver of negativity and overall poor holistic health is lack of sleep. Many people increasingly struggle with sleep issues as they get older, and this makes this particular thing a common challenge for retirees. Here's the good news. Many of the tips I shared earlier in the show, exercising, eating well, meditating, can improve sleep habits and patterns. Another unfortunate habit some fall into is focusing on things instead of experiences. You know, we all have our dream car, and there's nothing wrong with working toward owning our own boat or some other prized possession. But when possessions themselves become the main source of your happiness, that can lead to trouble. The healthier mindset is to focus on experiences, the experiences that are made possible by your possessions. The summer drives with your family in your dream car, boat trips with your friends and family members. By focusing on experiences more than possessions at every stage of life, this is actually a good strategy for maintaining passion and living your best. And finally, we know that one of the major causes of negativity in our lives can be other people. That means specific people, whether they're friends, coworkers, or family members. When you maintain close relationships with people who are negative, who are unmotivated, fearful, resentful, who have no passion, odds are that those feelings are going to impact you. Either do what you can to help these people and fix your relationship, or end the relationship for your own sake. Now, of course, living your best is about more than just avoiding or dealing with psychological challenges. There are certain external challenges that every retiree should be prepared for. And we'll talk more about that coming up in just a bit.
David J. Scranton, Amazon bestselling author, money manager, and national TV host, is on a mission to educate baby boomers about the need to shift from growth to income. If you're at or near retirement, focusing on income over growth can make all the difference in the quality of your retirement. Each week, David educates America on his Newsmax TV show, The Income Generation, where he provides special reports and more to teach baby boomers about the income model.
Call now for a free copy of David's latest book. Go to soundincomestrategies.com/income to find out more.
And right now it's time to welcome back Joe Mckenzie, entrepreneur with his company, Ripple Connects. He's a career expert, public speaker, co-host the weekly radio program, New Beginnings. Joe, thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.
Okay, so if the relationships are such a big deal because everything changes when you retire, then how many retirees do you see going back to work part-time? Not those that need the money. I mean, perhaps going back to work part-time just for the relationships, for something to do. How common is that in your experience?
I see a lot of people carving out their second careers, doing something they've always wanted to do, maybe something completely different. Life happens. We start our families. We start in a career. This is a great opportunity to do what you always done. Be a teacher. Go back and work with younger generations. Build houses. Be a coach. Be an entrepreneur. Second careers are a great way for baby boomers to stay connected, have that additional income, stay healthy and engaged in their communities and meeting new people. So second careers, I think, are a great step for someone to look at, and really an actionable step, David, for someone to figure out what is that second career. Let's go back to the bench of advocates. The people on our bench of advocates know us the best. They know our transferable skills. They could probably give us some insights on where do we go next. So it shouldn't be where we're not sure where we're going to go. We engage with the bench of advocates. They'll give us that roadmap on how do we start going down the road of a second career.
Sure. And then there's fitness. You know, those who are fitness buffs during their working lives are likely to continue those good habits right into retirement. But now that those folks have more time on their hands, isn't it a great opportunity for those who maybe have not focused enough on fitness to now make that a newfound priority during retirement?
I believe so. We all know some of the health risks of too much sitting during the day, sitting in a commute, driving home and to work. This is a great opportunity, especially even with the second career, to pair some of that activity with your job. So if you were sitting at a desk, maybe it's something you want to do where you're up and moving around. And I think that's a great way to add to that activity. But yeah, sitting is not good for us. So that ability to combine that more exercise, that structure, and maybe into a second career, that helps us stay healthy longer.
And for some, just if they, for example, join a health club, that's another great way to meet people, to network with people also, which is,
absolutely.
I don't have time. I run 3 companies. So when I go to the health club, I put the hat down like this. I try hard not to talk with anybody because I've got a few minutes to get my workout in and leave. But if I were retired, I can imagine it would be a little more fun than it currently is. Since we're on a financial show, let's take the last minute or so, because we probably should, talk about finances, okay? Finances in retirement. In the last 60 seconds or so, what are your best words of advice when you get somebody who's on that brink of retirement? Your best words of advice when it comes to managing their finances, or changes maybe in mindset when it comes to finances that they should be embarking upon as they phase into retirement?
Well, as they phase into retirement, know that there could be options for that second career, that you can maybe offset some of the Social Security longer by having that second career. Have that cash flow. One of the biggest concerns baby boomers have as they age is that they're going to run out of money. So here's a great way to keep cash flow going with a second career, in my opinion. With the advent of technology, we can do so much more from our homes, and we don't have to sit in those long commutes anymore. So I think second career, starting your own business, will help in the financial situation longer if you didn't do it. So that final thought would be, eye up that second career that's going to give you that cash flow that's going to allow you to retire comfortably, but also have that peace of mind as you go through life, knowing that you've got income coming in and staying engaged and healthy.
So Joe, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure, David. Thank you.
And you stay with us. We'll be right back with more here on The Income Generation. We'll be right back. So setting goals, exercising, meditating, get rid of negativity, those are all good ways to help ensure that you'll be living your best in retirement. However, they won't help you very much if you ignore or overlook the many real-world challenges that are unique to retirement. Most of these challenges that can threaten your financial health. So it's important to be aware of them and how to prepare. Now, we've identified and discussed these challenges many times on past shows, but here's a quick refresher. The first challenge to be aware of is longevity, and the fact that people today need to prepare for longer retirements than they realize. You might have the best financial strategy in the world, but if it's only designed for 20 years of reliable retirement income and you live past 20 years, it's going to come up short. The fact is, 30 years is about what most retirees today should be planning for, and this is based upon statistics regarding longevity. Now, speaking of longevity, the next major challenge is in the same vein, the risk of spending down your principal. As I point out many times on this show, spending any principal during retirement, especially in the first few years, is an extremely slippery slope. The longer you live, the more this risk increases if you don't have the right financial strategies to avoid it. A major contributor to that increased risk is the next challenge that retirees really need to prepare for, and that is inflation. See, most people don't realize that the effects of inflation hit retirees actually to a greater degree than the general population, and this is for a variety of reasons. And as a result, they underestimate the impact of inflation. The situation gets even worse when you factor in another issue facing retirees, and that is rising healthcare costs. For all the great things about having a longer, healthier lifespan, the downside is that the longer you live, the more likely you are to undergo a major health event. Most people smartly factor rising healthcare costs into their retirement plan, but it's another area that's often underestimated and miscalculated. Now, as I point out frequently, medical and healthcare costs increase at a rate much faster than the general rate of inflation. Since 1948, they've grown at an average annual rate of 5.3%, and that's compared to 3.5% for the CPI index overall, which means that healthcare costs are basically doubling every 12 years. Another major challenge to living your best in retirement has to do with Social Security. Although it's a guaranteed source of retirement income for most people, Social Security alone isn't nearly enough to meet their retirement needs and goals. That's why maximizing your benefits is so incredibly important. Now, as many know, the earlier you start taking Social Security, the less you get. So if you take your benefits early, you need to have your assets generating enough interest and dividends to supplement your Social Security income. On the other hand, if you hold off taking Social Security in order to get more, possibly as late as age 70, then if you want to retire before that, you need to fill the income gap, that gap between the time you retire and the time those benefits actually kick in. In either case, the key is to have an asset allocation that minimizes your odds of spending principal or of suffering a major loss. Now, a similar danger exists with one of retirement's biggest challenges, and that's required minimum distributions. Now, as you're probably aware, the government requires you to start taking distributions from your IRA accounts at age 70 and a half. RMDs, as they're known as, start at 3.65%, and they increase every year after that. Now, the all-important question to answer regarding RMDs is this: is my asset allocation generating enough interest or dividends to satisfy my RMDs? Or are my RMDs going to have to come out of principal? Naturally, there are many other challenges to maintaining good financial health and living your best in retirement. But in my experience, these are some of the biggest ones. Also, your odds of meeting these challenges are greatly improved with the help of the right financial advisor, ideally one who works primarily with retirees and near retirees and who specializes in financial strategies geared toward protection and income. We'll talk more about this coming up in just a bit. If you're near or in retirement, head over to theincomegeneration.com and download your special report written specifically for the needs of the income generation, again, those born before 1966. I'm David Scranton, and you've been watching The Income Generation. Now it's time to welcome our next guests, Ed and Cynthia Staten, the authors of the book Mission: Rescue Your Retirement. Now you might remember the Statens from our February episode all about retiring abroad. They've also been in the news lately. They've been featured in a recent article on Market Watch. Ed and Cynthia, thanks for joining us again today.
Dave, thanks for having us back. We're glad to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So you've heard some of our points for living your best in retirement. We talk about having goals, such you have reason to get out of bed in the morning, working on continuing those relationships in retirement. We talk about staying busy, not having too much free time. So where would you like to start? Which of those things? Maybe let's just start with goals. How have you been able to help people when it comes to goal setting in this brand new chapter of their life, maybe a chapter where they're not used to setting these types of goals, how have you been able to help people with that so that they have a reason to get out of bed in the morning, so they don't become bored 6 months into retirement?
Well, when you live where we do in a foreign country, it's never boring, that's for sure. There's just so many things to keep you busy, both just trying to get your life established and then to have so many interesting cultural activities that you're not used to from the American culture. It's never boring. We always say if you live in an interesting city abroad and you're bored, you're boring, not the location.
That's right. It's not the city's problem. It's your problem. But riddle me this then. At some point, probably when you were still working, you got this idea, this goal of, gee, perhaps we're going to retire and live abroad. How's this going to look? What motivated you to start to set those types of goals for retirement before retirement?
Well, I think that we're not that unusual in that we always dreamed in retirement that we would be able to travel and kind of chase the weather, and we didn't have all the details nailed down, but it was something that we always wanted to do. Of course, we were kind of forced into early retirement, so we had to do a regroup on that. But here we find ourselves, living in Ecuador, and part of that dream has come true for us.
Yeah, it was ironic that we were casualties of the economic recession in 2008. So like Cynthia said, the idea of living abroad wasn't foreign to us, sorry. But it's manifested in a way that we certainly never envisioned. But it's turned out to be one of the best things that's ever happened in our whole life.
So in the minute or so we have left in this particular segment, what would you say to somebody who maybe isn't as creative as you, maybe not as right-brained, where if I say to you, what are your goals in retirement? Well, we just want to enjoy retirement, be comfortable, and maybe travel just a little bit. And that's it. They're not creative enough to really put those goals out there the way you were. What words of advice would you give those pre-retirees?
I would actually say before retirement shows up on your doorstep, you need to sit down and think about it. Just like you plan out anything in your life and imagine what it would look like. Particularly if you're a married couple, suddenly you're going to have a lot of time together. So you need to maybe find a purpose to do something that you've just never had time to do in your work world. We know a lot of people here that suddenly they have time to do a lot of volunteer work, and that just gives them so much satisfaction, and it takes up their day.
And it also gives them relationships. You heard our last guest talk about networking and relationships, because you lose relationships when you quit the work environment, or at least you're not seeing people every day. So you're right. Volunteering also allows you to meet new people, which is important. We need to take a quick commercial break. If you stay with us, we really appreciate it. And you stay with us too. We'll be back with more here, right here on The Income Generation in just a minute. Just a little while ago, we did a show focusing on the things that fuel my own passion for life and that help me feel like that I'm living my best. If you happen to watch that show, you know that the main source of passion and motivation for me is teaching. Whether it's hosting a financial education workshop, meeting with new clients, or mentoring fellow financial advisors, I'm most happy and fulfilled when I'm sharing knowledge with others. In fact, this passion for educating investors was the driving force behind my creation of this thing called the Retirement Income Store, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But there's also a flip side to my main passion. As much as I love teaching and coaching, I also understand and accept the importance of being a student, always being open to learning new things and being coachable myself. Now, I mention all this because it's highly relevant to today's topic. And as I discussed earlier, one of the main tips experts recommend for living your best at every stage of life is to keep learning, to always be seeking new knowledge and understanding. Unfortunately, retirement is a stage of life when some people start to reject new knowledge and new ideas. They become set in their ways. That's not only potentially dangerous from a psychological standpoint, but can also jeopardize your ability to meet and tackle the many real-world challenges that come with retirement. Here's the reality. Times change, economics change, the markets change. And the challenges facing today's generation of retirees and near retirees are very different in many ways from the challenges that faced our parents and our grandparents. Many of the so-called textbook rules and guidelines for saving and investing, guidelines that were relevant 20 or more years ago, are no longer relevant today. Yes, the game has changed, and investors in or near retirement need to understand how it's changed and how alternate financial strategies can actually improve your odds of enjoying a successful retirement and of living your best. Again, it all starts with education and being open to learning new concepts and new ideas, even when those concepts are the opposite of a lot of what you hear in the financial media or what you think you already know about investing and about the financial markets. And again, this was the driving force behind my creation of the Retirement Income Store, to make it easier for people nationwide to access good, objective information and to find qualified financial educators right in their backyard. There's a growing network of these educators and income specialists across the country that are already aligned with the Retirement Income Store, and more are joining each and every day. Their common goal is to help everyday investors like you learn what you really need to know to protect your money and to achieve your retirement goals, all in the face of today's unique challenges. To help you, in other words, live your best during retirement. And now it's time to welcome back Ed and Cynthia Staten, authors of Mission, Rescue Your Retirement. Again, thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for having us stick around.
Yeah.
Now you were in a pretty nice area. You know, the weather's not terrible in the Atlanta area, but in the winter it does get cold. You retired, you went to Ecuador. So, you know, was part of that rationale to go to a nice climate, the fact that you have more time on your hands, maybe you can be outside more, you could walk more, you could exercise more, you could focus on fitness and not be all cooped up inside?
Well, we developed, when we decided to move abroad, Cynthia, I have to give her all the credit, as we told you, we were in a tough situation financially, and she said, if we're moving to another country, we're going to make a list of everything that's important to us, and we're going to find a place that satisfies all those. Temperate climate was one of those issues. We're what we call Goldilocks people. We don't like it too hot or too cold. As you said, it's not that cold in the South, but it was cold enough for us. And living in Las Vegas for 4 years, you know,
Enough heat. Yeah.
we've had enough heat. So yeah, moving to this climate, people mistakenly think that if you live on the equator, it's got to be hot, and it's all about the altitude. We live at 8,300 feet, so for us it's springtime all the time. If you're at sea level or in the jungle, it's hot all the time.
Well, and you mentioned being outside more. We have a walking lifestyle, and because we don't need a car living in the city, and we're out all the time, and it's really we get our exercise that way without even trying to exercise, because we're always out walking. So climate is a factor, and it certainly was important to us.
Sure. In the 45 seconds we have left in this block, what do you tell people when they ask about working part-time in retirement? I'm not talking about those who are working because they need the income. I'm talking about those who maybe were workaholics, they don't need the income, but just for a sense of fulfillment, for a sense of social interaction. What's your thoughts on that? What do you tell people?
Yeah,
It's a good solution for some people, actually.
Yeah, we know a number of people who you can't get a job here, so to speak. That's going to go to local. But so many people have created little cottage industry kind of businesses that throw off a few $100s a month in income. And even if they don't need it, and that doesn't sound like much in where you live, but a few $100s a month here pays for a lot.
Yeah. And we need to leave it there for this segment. I really apologize. We need to take a commercial break. And you stay with us too. We'll be back here with more on the income generation in just a moment. Welcome back to the show. I'm David Scranton, and we're here with authors Ed and Cynthia Staten. They have a new program out now called Retirement Reimagine, which is really a revolutionary program for those who are trying to get more out of limited funds at retirement, to get more enjoyment out of retirement, as we said in the show, living your best. Tell us more about the program, please.
Okay, Ed, do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, go for it.
We created this program, Dave, to give people an idea of how to become a successful expat. It has 5 sections. The first one is determining what in the world do you want. And we spend a lot of time on that so that people can do the self-assessment that they need to do to figure out where in the world that they're going.
Then the second section is called Where in the World Are You Going? We spotlight 10 different countries, places within those countries. We cover everything from climate, healthcare, how to get a visa. We even have a section giving average flight times and cost of 4 different U.S. cities. And then section 3 is
how to plan and execute a successful scouting trip, which is not like a vacation. You're going to go there, and we give you a lot of assignments to figure out if this is a place you would actually want to live 24/7, 365. And then the fourth section
is getting ready to go. Once you've decided which place you are going to relocate to, as you can imagine, Dave, there's a ton of details that you got to button up before you turn out the lights and lock the door to get on the plane to that place. And we've got all of them covered, because you don't want to get to a foreign country and say, oh, I should have done so-and-so.
Fill in the blank. And then the final section is really helping you get your new life abroad set up, how to assemble your team, even how to make new friends.
So it's nice. So it's nice and interactive. Then it's like workbook. It's interactive. It's designed not just for people to read, and I love that. I love that. So, 30 seconds. Let's say I get excited by this concept of living abroad and retirement. How many years before retirement should I start doing my homework?
You want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I would say give yourself. We pushed really hard. It took us a year from the time we decided to do it to when we actually got on the plane. And a lot of times there's factors in people's lives like selling a business, an aging parent, so forth and so on. Life gets complicated sometimes. So you don't want to wait till the last minute.
Yeah, so
10 seconds, 3 years, 5 years?
Oh, I would say at least a year.
At least a year. I love it. Sorry to cut you short. We actually need to go at this point. I really appreciate you being back and joining us here on the program. Look forward to hooking up with you again on your next adventures. All right, and you stay with us. We'll be back here with more right here on the Income Generation. I'd like to thank both of our guests for joining us for another episode of The Income Generation. Most importantly, though, I'd like to thank you, our new and returning viewers. Living your best. In some ways, that means different things to different people, of course. However, most people would probably agree it means living a life that is healthy, as free from stress as possible, and fueled by joy, passion, and a sense of positivity. Retirement is a stage of life when we all hope to be living our best, but it's also one that comes with a unique set of challenges that can keep us from achieving that goal. Improving your odds starts with recognizing these many challenges, recognizing them ahead of time, and taking proactive steps to overcome these. Steps such as setting sensory-specific goals and practicing visualizing them. Keep a journal, meditate, and work to stay physically and mentally healthy. Eliminate sources of negativity in your life, whether they're psychological, behavioral, or relationship-based. Maintain your passion. Be appreciative. Fill your time with work and activities that are meaningful and fulfilling. And always focus on experiences rather than possessions. Be aware of and be prepared for the many real-world challenges that can jeopardize your financial health in retirement, such as longevity, inflation, healthcare inflation, the risk of spending down principal, and the importance of allocating your assets properly for Social Security and then ultimately for RMDs. And finally, be open to education and to learning about financial strategies that are right for today's markets, and they're designed to meet the challenges unique to this generation of retirees and near retirees. Our generation, the income generation. Thanks for watching. If you're close to retirement and you really want to know how to protect and maximize your money, it's absolutely essential that you stay informed and up to date. And as you know, right here is where you can do it on the income generation. I'm David Scranton, and we'll see you next week.
Read David J. Scranton's groundbreaking new book, Return on Principle, 7 Core Values to Help Protect Your Money in Good Times and Bad. Discover practical solutions to the financial challenges facing today's generation of retirees and near retirees. Learn the truth about Wall Street, the financial media, and the secrets they try to hide from everyday investors. Available now.
For behind-the-scenes photos, retirement planning tips, and upcoming giveaways, follow the Income Generation Show on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch video clips, guest interviews, and to catch up on past episodes.